You spend your entire week working an exhausting job just to buy metal objects that prove to strangers you are not poor. Whoever dropped the need to perform for the crowd kept the gold in their own pocket. In his 2006 book, How to Get Rich, Felix Dennis describes his early days building a publishing empire. He walks through the rain in a cheap coat. He refuses to buy a nice suit.
He sits in cold offices and negotiates massive distribution deals while looking like a common laborer. The bankers assume he is desperate and underestimate his ruthless business strategy. Dennis knows that wearing an expensive watch signals a desire for social acceptance. He strips away his vanity to preserve his cash for buying heavy printing presses. He builds a massive fortune by ignoring the rules of the corporate uniform. The poor man dresses rich.
Two men earn the same heavy paycheck every 2 weeks. One man takes a large portion of that check and buys an expensive car with a heavy monthly payment. He wants the neighbors to feel jealous when he pulls into the driveway. The other man drives a beat-up sedan with peeling paint and puts that exact same portion into buying shares of a stable company. The shiny car rusts. The invisible shares multiply. The luxury corporations build their business model on your deep biological insecurity. They sell you a heavy piece of ordinary canvas with a shiny logo for thousands of dollars. They know you will trade months of your physical labor just to feel socially superior in a crowded room. The silent builder walks past the bright store windows. They refuse to fund the elite empire with their own vanity. The ego destroys the vault.
The desire to look rich keeps the actual bank account empty. A man wearing a $10,000 watch is usually financing his heavy house on a variable rate mortgage. The true titan wears a $30 digital watch because he does not need to broadcast his physical power to a room full of strangers. He knows his net worth is locked safely in the quiet vault. The silent number commands absolute respect.
You looked at your own car keys this morning and calculated how many hours of your life you traded for the metal badge on the hood. You felt the sharp sting of regret when you realized the payment traps you in a job you hate. Realizing the trap is the first quiet sign that your mindset is physically changing. The desire to show off dies when you understand the physical cost. Vanity requires heavy chains.
Understanding the true cost of shiny metal objects forces a massive shift in how you measure the value of your own waking hours. In his 1836 manual, The Statesman, Henry Taylor observes a powerful British political minister managing a massive empire. The minister refuses to read his own mail or sort his own paper files. He pays a young clerk a small wage to handle every trivial task that crosses the heavy wooden desk. He buys back his hours. The working class trades their heavy time to acquire cheap paper money. They will spend 3 hours crawling under a dirty sink to fix a pipe just to save $50. The wealthy operator trades their paper money to acquire heavy time. They pay a professional to fix the pipe so they can spend those 3 hours building a business that generates $5,000. Time is the absolute limit. Outsourcing your trivial chores is not an act of arrogance. It is a strict mathematical calculation of your own human worth. When you spend 2 hours cutting your own grass to save $40, you value your biological time at $20 an hour. You trap your own mind in a low wage bracket. The quiet builder assigns a massive hourly rate to their own life. Cheap labor builds the prison. Trading time for cheap money is the trap that catches the smartest graduates. They accept a heavy salary, but agree to answer corporate emails at midnight on a Sunday. They sell their most productive biological hours to build another man's heavy empire. The quiet operator refuses to sell the Sunday night. They use those quiet hours to lay the heavy bricks of their own independent financial fortress. The weekend builds the massive escape. You faced this choice last weekend when you spent your only 2 days off painting your living room to save a fraction of your paycheck. You went back to work on Monday morning exhausted. You traded your rare recovery time for a task a teenager could perform for pocket change. Your finite energy demands a massive premium. The exhausted worker never escapes the wheel. Fatigue prevents the grand escape. Reclaiming your time from useless chores clears your mind to observe the actual mechanics of money without the distraction of constant motion. In his 1998 book, Winning the Loser's Game, Charles Ellis studies the physical habits of successful amateur tennis players. He watches them hit the green ball across the net on a quiet Saturday morning. The amateur player who wins the match does not attempt spectacular or aggressive shots. Discipline wins the long match. They win by returning the ball to the center of the court and waiting for the opponent to make a fatal mistake. Building true wealth mirrors the boring tennis match. The desperate amateur logs into their digital brokerage account every single day. They buy volatile companies, hoping to strike a heavy lottery ticket. The silent millionaire buys a broad index of mundane businesses and ignores the account for 10 years. Thrills belong in the casino. The financial media industry exists to make you feel like you are missing a massive opportunity. They parade loud experts on the television who scream about the next hot technology stock. They want you trading constantly because the broker collects a heavy toll on every transaction. The silent operator ignores the loud experts. They buy the entire haystack and go for a long walk in the quiet woods. Action destroys the heavy portfolio. The quiet operator understands that every time they touch their investments, they introduce the massive risk of human error. The human brain is hardwired to panic when the red numbers drop and to become greedy when the green numbers rise. The boring strategy removes the flawed human brain from the mathematical equation. The quiet builder sets an automatic transfer and refuses to check the daily balance. Emotion destroys the heavy math. You checked your digital portfolio 3 times yesterday, hoping a specific red line would turn green. You felt a surge of adrenaline when the number moved up a fraction of a percent. You are treating your financial future like a cheap slot machine in a dark room. True wealth building is slow and devoid of human emotion. The compounding math does the heavy lifting in the dark. The winning hand is absolute boredom. When the daily fluctuations of the market no longer trigger your heart rate, the loud noise of the outside world loses its tight grip on your attention. In his 1985 book, Amusing Ourselves to Death, Neil Postman examines a 19th century farmer reading a local newspaper by a quiet fire. The farmer reads information that directly impacts his physical crops or his immediate community. Focus protects the heavy crop. He ignores rumors of distant wars and palace gossip because he cannot act on the information. He preserves his mental clarity for the physical reality he can touch with his own hands. The modern media machine manufactures a constant state of global panic to harvest your biological attention. They flash bright red lights and scream about an impending economic collapse to keep you glued to the glowing screen. Noise feeds the busy machine. Every time you click a terrifying headline, a heavy algorithm logs your biological reaction. The data brokers sell your fear to advertisers, who use your elevated cortisol levels to sell you useless survival gear and expensive gold coins. The silent builder unplugs the heavy machine. They stop worrying about the collapse of the global supply chain and start building a strong physical fence around their own backyard. Panic funds the heavy elite. The people broadcasting the panic are earning heavy salaries off your biological fear. The television anchor screaming about inflation goes home to a quiet mansion paid for
by the advertisements running during the broadcast. They sell you the heavy anxiety and deposit the massive profits into their own bank account. The quiet operator sees the exact mechanism and refuses to play the role of the terrified victim. The puppet cuts the strings.
You spent 2 hours last night scrolling through terrible headlines on your phone. You went to sleep with a tight chest and woke up feeling anxious about a foreign crisis you cannot control. You surrendered your precious cognitive bandwidth to a massive corporation that profits directly from your elevated heart rate. You gave them your heavy peace for free. The person building real power turns the television off. The quiet operator protects silence.
Protecting your mind from manufactured panic creates a massive internal calm that alters how you handle physical emergencies in the real world. In his 1758 almanac, The Way to Wealth, Benjamin Franklin describes a smart blacksmith operating a hot forge in colonial Philadelphia. The blacksmith keeps a heavy iron box hidden under the floorboards of his shop. He places a few copper coins in the box every single week. The anvil breaks the unprepared.
When his heavy anvil cracks in half, he does not beg a banker for a heavy loan regardless of his immediate expenses. The desperate worker operates without a net. A flat tire or a broken tooth is a massive, catastrophic event that ruins their entire financial year. They rely on high-interest credit cards to survive the inevitable chaos of the physical world. The wealthy builder holds a boring pile of paper cash. The heavy shield deflects the blow.
That quiet account is not an investment designed to generate a heavy yield. It is a heavy psychological moat filled with deep water. When your boss yells at you in a loud meeting, you do not cower in absolute fear of losing your job. You look him dead in the eye because you know you have 6 months of living expenses sitting in the dark vault. Cash is weaponized freedom.
The heavy shield of quiet cash allows you to negotiate every single interaction from a position of absolute power. When a client demands unreasonable terms, the desperate freelancer accepts the terrible contract to pay the rent. The quiet builder with the heavy cash buffer declines the contract and waits for a better offer. The ability to walk away without fear is the ultimate heavy weapon in the modern economy. Leverage requires cold cash.
You felt a wave of pure terror last month when your car engine made a loud grinding noise on the highway. You pulled over and realized you did not have the cash to tow the heavy metal box to a mechanic. You prayed the engine would start because your entire physical survival depended on it. Holding a quiet cash buffer eliminates that specific terror. Preparation kills the daily fear. Eliminating the terror of unexpected bills changes how you walk through the world and alters how you speak to the people around you. In his 1647 manual, The Art of Worldly Wisdom, Baltasar Gracian advises a young Spanish courtier on the mechanics of supreme power. Gracian warns the young man never to reveal the true extent of his resources or his future plans to anyone. The wise courtier stays mute. He watches loud men boast about their gold in the crowded plaza. The loud men invite jealous thieves and desperate beggars to their front door. When you are broke, you want everyone to think you are making massive amounts of money. You talk loudly about your side business and your future real estate empire. When you actually start accumulating heavy capital, your lips seal shut. The ghost avoids the target. You realize that sharing your financial success invites unwanted scrutiny and toxic envy from your closest friends. Revealing your heavy gains alters the power dynamics of your entire family. Relatives who ignored you for years appear with urgent medical bills and brilliant startup ideas. If you give them the heavy money, they resent you for your power. If you deny them the heavy money, they hate you for your greed. Fame invites the hungry wolves. You sat at a dinner party last week and listened to a man brag about his massive stock market returns. You wanted to correct his terrible math and reveal your own quiet success. You bit your tongue and smiled while he kept talking. You realized his desperate need for public validation proved his massive internal weakness. You kept your heavy numbers in the dark. Silence protects the heavy gold.
Moving like a ghost through the financial world preserves your capital, while you realize a massive vault is useless if the biological vessel decays. In his 1558 book, Discourses on the Sober Life, Luigi Cornaro describes a Venetian nobleman who destroys his body with massive feasts and heavy wine. Cornaro changes his entire existence at the age of 40. He restricts his diet to a tiny measure of simple food and clean water. Health preserves the heavy gold.
He watches his wealthy peers die of massive heart failure in their beautiful palaces. Cornaro lives past 90. The working class treats their physical body like a cheap rental car. They eat terrible processed food and skip sleep to work extra hours. They trade their biological health for a few extra paper dollars. The wealthy builder treats their body like an irreplaceable exotic engine. Sickness drains the massive vault. They invest heavy sums of money into high-quality food, brutal physical training, and perfect sleep. A heavy medical emergency in your later years will drain your financial vault in a matter of months. The hospital will take the money you spent decades saving and transfer it to the pharmaceutical giants. The quiet builder views the gym as a massive daily deposit into a biological savings account. Longevity is the ultimate asset. You skipped the gym yesterday morning because you wanted an extra hour of sleep before your stressful commute. You grabbed a cheap pastry wrapped in plastic and drank a massive cup of artificial caffeine. You are depreciating your only physical asset to serve a corporate master who will replace you tomorrow. You cannot enjoy a heavy gold mountain from a hospital bed. The sick man wants one thing. Protecting the biological machine gives you the long decades required to execute the final and most powerful sign of real accumulation. In his 2012 book, Mastery, Robert Greene studies the early life of Charles Darwin aboard the heavy wooden ship Beagle. Darwin does not receive a massive salary for his 5-year voyage around the violent globe. He spends his days collecting thousands of beetles and plant specimens in the brutal heat. Knowledge pays the ultimate dividend. He catalogs the physical world in absolute silence. He sacrifices immediate financial reward to build an unshakable foundation. The desperate worker demands an immediate hourly wage for every single task they perform. If a project does not pay cash on Friday, they refuse to touch it. The quiet builder spends 5 years learning a complex programming language or studying a boring real estate market in the dark. They plant slow, heavy trees. They work for free to acquire a heavy skill that will generate massive asymmetric returns. The market places a heavy premium on the rare combination of deep skills. A man who can write code is common. A man who can write code, understand complex accounting, and speak well in a crowded room is an absolute unicorn. The quiet builder stacks these boring skills in the dark over many years. Skill protects the human worker. You closed an educational tutorial video last night because it seemed too difficult and offered no immediate financial payoff. You switched to a loud entertainment platform and numbed your tired brain for 3 hours. You avoided the heavy friction of learning because you wanted a quick hit of cheap dopamine. The elite chase the heavy friction because it eliminates the weak competition. The hard path is empty. These quiet signs do not arrive with a loud announcement or a bright parade down the main street. They creep into your daily routine. When you stop fighting the heavy status games designed by the corporate machine, you stop caring about the metal badge on your car and the designer logo on your heavy jacket. You find absolute peace In the boring math of compound interest, you trade loud vanity for silent power.
The historical operators shared their hidden blueprints only with those brave enough to step into the absolute dark. Something on this screen is the modern version of that exact ancient act of seeking the forbidden knowledge today. Every significant financial outcome in your life followed from a choice made without complete structural vision. This is one of those moments. You are on the seeing side.
You look around your office and see a room full of exhausted people pretending to be rich. They are drowning in heavy debt and dying of constant stress just to maintain a fragile illusion. You sit at your desk with a massive secret, shielded. You know your quiet portfolio is growing in the dark, while they fight over the cheap scraps on the floor. The matrix loses its grip.
The historical operators shared their hidden blueprints only with those brave enough to step into the absolute dark. Something on this screen is the modern version of that exact ancient act of seeking the forbidden knowledge today. Every significant financial outcome in your life followed from a choice made without complete structural vision. This is one of those moments. You are on the seeing side.